Hey, good evening. You're able to see me, Sushma? You guys are able to hear me out? Rahul, you're able to hear me, right? And you're able to see my deck.
Yes, sir.
All right. In the interest of time, let's move ahead. That people come and join later. Okay. So, good evening, everybody. Rajan here. Today's session is more about measuring what is actually needed. So, we always have an experience of working, setting goals, working with that, right? So we plan, say we are entering a new year, we plan to do a certification, we plan to get a new job, perform well in that job, plan for a vacation. But somehow down the lane, what happens is that we lose track, we lose focus. We are not able to accomplish that whatever planned goals, right? So there is a need of some kind of an methodology or a framework where we are able to set goals, define goals, track those, have a reflection of what we have missed, what we have accomplished, and proceed so that we overcome all those challenges. In the 70s, Intel was driven by a guy called Andy Grove. He was the one who first designed this OKRs, goal setting framework. So he worked with John Dover, the author of Measure What Matters. Both started looking at there needs to be some kind of a framework where we can accomplish goals. So Intel had a kind of a strange situation. It was in the year of 70s where they came out with this chipset 8086 processor and they thought this is going to beat the market. This is going to be the fastest chipset ever produced. But down the lane, what they understood was Motorola and Zilog came out with a dual chip concept, which was much faster than 8086 processor. So he was in a spot, okay? He really needed to make sure that he overcomes this challenge. So he thought that there needs to be some kind of goals that are set and that needs to be accomplished. If at all, my company Intel has to survive and excel. So he worked with John Dover, the Measure What Matters author, and they came out with this framework. And they were able to successfully implement this framework, set goals, and excel as a company year on year. So they found out what is the pattern, how do we need to design OKRs, and they came out with that kind of best practices. Slowly, what happened? John Dover started interacting with Larry Page. During that time, Google was around 4-member team or 4-member organization. And today, if you see, the count is around 2 lakh members. Now, anybody asks Larry Page, what is one of the factors that helped Google grow as what they are right now? He echoed a word called OKRs. If at all any company business leaders say they have already started implementing OKRs and they found that if at all my company has survived, if at all we have handled disruptions, challenges, it was only through these OKRs, goal setting frameworks. Each one will have their own names, but it's kind of a base version of goal setting framework. So, based on his experience coaching different companies, slowly once Google started this OKR implementation, other companies also started. Today, most of the organizations have some flavor of OKRs of what we are trying to do. So, based on his coaching experience, John Dover came out with a kind of an book called Measure What Matters. And today's discussion is going to be on the synopsis of what this book is talking about. So we are not going to look at this book and quickly looking into the agenda. We are going to look at what are OKRs, basic why do we need an OKR, how OKRs are different from KPIs, what are the foundation blocks that are needed, different types of OKRs, and look at real-time scenarios of how OKR was implemented and what are the challenges that are being faced and what are the best practices. So this is the agenda. Quickly moving on to understanding what are OKRs. OKRs are nothing but some kind of a methodology where the organization sets some goals. Now, from a team perspective within the organization, team tries to work to make sure these organization goals are accomplished. So it's a kind of a guideline that makes sure that you set some goals and everybody works towards that goals. So basically, OKRs are kind of aspirational, outcome based, transparent, simple, visible and clear and possible. When you say outcome based, they're not like tasks. You need to do this task. There is a reasoning behind it. You know what you are going to accomplish, why you are going to accomplish. I do this particular task so that I accomplish this. So it's not just a kind of task based, but you're looking at what is the revenue that is getting generated, how a company is going to exist because of that. What is the company going to do? More about results rather than tasks. Aspirational is more about you're trying to dream something big. It is not something like a mediocre, small outcomes or achievements. You're trying to do something new, think big, and try to accomplish it. Transparent is everybody knows what needs to be done, why it is needs to be done, how it is needs to be done. Everybody are on the same page. Simple is it is easy. It's just a one-liner or a two-liner maximum, making sure that everybody are able to understand all those what we are trying to accomplish. Memorable is kind of everybody remembers at any point of time to make sure that they have a checkpoint that whatever activity or work I do is that related to the goal that is being set by the organization. So that's the basic. It's just a one liner or a two liner. So objective it OKRs generally consist of one would be the objectives and the other would be the key results. Objectives is more about what am I going to accomplish. It's more about qualitative, descriptive, one liner. What am I going to accomplish? Key results is about why am I doing it? Why am I going to do accomplish it? How am I going to do it? Okay. Once I complete this OKR, what am I going to measure? Whether I've achieved it or not. So key results are more about how am I going to accomplish the goal that I have set. And if at all I complete that OKR, how do I decide whether I have completed that objective or I have missed that objective? That is what is all about key results. It's basically kind of quantitative, measurable results. Now let's look at this picture, right? My objective is to reach a particular destination. That is my objective. Key results would be if at all I need to reach that particular destination, I have to move or traverse through these in between places to make sure that I reach that destination. So if I say that I am going to reach this destination, that means I should have reached all these in between places. So if I've reached place 1, place 2, place 3, place 4, that means I have accomplished by reaching this destination. If I have not reached this KR4, I have not reached, I have completed this objective. So basically, it's a way of how you will do it, whether I have reached it or not. And this road or the traffic rules is what is that methodology or framework that is trying to give me a guideline to accomplish that goal, right? So let's quickly look at a simple example. Now, I am trying to make a financial product. The objective is not to create an awesome financial product only. Why do I do it? I create this financial product to make sure I increase my customer engagement. That's my company's goal. Okay. I want to increase my customer engagement through creating a financial product. Now, how do I validate it, whether I've accomplished or not, or what do I need to do so that I will have to accomplish this? 40% of the users have to at least visit my site or my product twice a week. If they do, they pass. At least 80% of the enrolled registers have to give me a score or at least of 8 to 10. So if I am able to achieve these two key results, I can say that I have created a product that would increase the customer engagement. So this is how I am trying to measure of what I have, what goals or what objectives I'm accomplished, instead of just saying I want to create an awesome financial product. That's not the goal here. In order to create an awesome financial product, Why do I do it? I do it for my customer engagement. Now, how do I measure it? 40% have to come back at least twice a week. There should be a minimum score of 8 to 10, 8 out of 10 customer satisfaction score for at least 80% of the enrolled users. All right. So this is the kind of metrics that I am trying to measure rather than just saying I am trying to design a product. I will design a product. That designing a product is not the end goal. My goal is to increase the customer engagement. That's what we are trying to focus here by using these OKRs. Now, if at all I define key results, it should fall under any of these criteria or factors. Growth. Let's say company grows. Say Google started using OKRs when they were 4-member team. Today, there are around 2 lakh people. So one factor was because of this setting high goals, setting bars, high bars, and setting goals and accomplishing that. So that is one example of growth. I have 20-member team today. At the end of 6 months or end of 1 year, I wanted to make it a 1,000-member team. So what do I do for that? That's kind of a growth. Engagement is what we are trying to talk about. It can be a customer engagement. It can be an employee engagement. Say, I am trying to measure the happiness index of all employees. How engaged are the employees towards the organization? That could be one factor. Revenue, increase in terms of profitability, all that stuff. Performance. Say, for example, you're trying to create the same site, okay? You're trying to create a feature, and the download time of that particular page is, say, 10 milliseconds. From 10 milliseconds, I would like to make it as 5 milliseconds. So that can be a kind of a measuring point or a measuring factor. Loyalty can be kind of customer satisfaction scores, like what we are talking about here, CSAT, NPS, net performance score. So any key results that what we are trying to do, the bottom line here is you got to measure it through numbers, and how is it impacting the consequence? What is the end result? How is it impacting is what we are talking about in terms of how we are helping the customer. So this is a simple example of an OKR. So now the question comes, why do we really need an OKR? We always had goals, we tried to accomplish, some we were not able to. What is this OKRs kind of secret sauce that is helping us? So there are multiple factors here. First, we are trying to look at one factor called the focus, where we are trying to concentrate on one or at the max 2 items. You're not bringing everything to the plate and then trying to wander around. You're trying to focus on one particular item or a maximum 2 particular items and trying to say, this is what I am trying to accomplish for the next 3 months, next 6 months from a company perspective. And then you try to accomplish it, and then you reflect whether you've accomplished it or not. Not taking everything to your plate and then trying to be unsuccessful. Try to pick one at the max 2 and then try to accomplish. Let me give you an example. YouTube. Susan was a former CEO of YouTube. She put it like this. At one particular point of time, my focus was only on watch time. As a YouTube, she wanted to make sure that increase watch time. To increase watch time, what do I need to do? So this was her focus. This was one of her objectives. Then later she found at some other point of time, all right, there are a number of features where the user has to enroll, register, but there are many users who are not actually getting registered or getting logged in, but they are trying to use YouTube. What happens is that there are many features that they are not able to see. Now, how do I make a customer logged in and make sure that he accepts, he sees all the features that are being built? Subscription is one feature that only a registered user can do. So as a company, they thought this is what I will have to focus on, is how do I make a customer enroll? The other point that what you was trying to look at was, before acquiring YouTube, Susan was the CEO for Google Videos. She was the chief of Google Videos. And there was a peculiar scenario in Google Videos where people can upload the video. But the problem here was they were not able to view the immediately uploaded video. It took some time. So what they found was they lost some share of people. People started moving to YouTube before Google acquired YouTube. So then they focused on, how do I make Google Videos make sure that once I upload the video, how do I make sure that people start seeing it. That was the focus. This is what, as a company, we are trying to achieve. Then they saw that they lost almost 1/3 of the market. It will be very difficult to catch with YouTube. And they found that YouTube was also bleeding. It didn't have money. There were a lot of users coming in. They got to pump in a lot of money to increase the infrastructure, but they didn't have that money. So she thought that the goal now is to acquire YouTube. They almost buyed out YouTube for 2 billion. Now, her goal was to first buy YouTube. The second goal was to make sure to how to get that revenue back after by having a buyout of a 2 billion. So each time she focused on one particular area rather than multiple items, and they were able to succeed. That's the point here. If we try to use these OKRs, you try to only look at one item at a time and then try to accomplish and reflect on it. Now let's come to the alignment issue. So alignment is a kind of you start defining goals, right? You start defining goals. It is not that from an organization point they define goals and then they just give those goals or objectives to the employees or members. Let's take a simple example. India Cements bought CSK. Their brand value is around 250 million. Now, the goal of India Cements is to increase the brand value of CSK as a team. Now, that would be the goal from an organization perspective. So the goals just don't cascade from whatever goals that are made from the organization. It doesn't cascade just like that as a copycat to the teams. Now, from the CSK teams, there will be one team to say, okay, I as a team will take care of ticket sales. I will make sure that the stadium is full. That brings in a brand value. There'll be another team which says, okay, I will make sure that there is some revenue generated from team endorsements, advertisements. There'll be another technical team. You say, okay, as a team, the cricket team has to function, perform well. At least they should qualify the quarters or the semis to make sure the ticket stadiums are full, to make sure there is some kind of endorsements that is coming, to make sure that there is a revenue that is coming. By these activities, as a team, I am trying to increase the brand value of the organization. So it is not, there is a collaboration here. There is a kind of a business clarity of why we are doing, what is needed. There is a clarity here, clearly of what is needed, why we are doing. There is a kind of communication that is happening here. So the whole idea is you just have a one-liner where there is a clarity of what needs to be done, why it needs to be done from the members of the organization, and there is an alignment. And it is not just something that is enforced. Somebody sets the goal. It is not just you're being thrown with some piece of goal settings and you got to perform. From there, you have an autonomy to make sure how am I going to accomplish that goals. That alignment will be there. Any piece of work that you do, you will be able to see the big picture of how am I contributing from to an organization perspective. That alignment will be there if we go in for an OKRs. Third one would be a kind of commitment. Just like what I said, it is they don't throw things off saying that this is the goals that needs to be set. Okay, this is what is the brand value that I am trying to see an increase in. But as a team, I can escalate it. I can put a point that for this next 3 months, this is not possible. What is possible, we will try to accomplish. So goals are not something written in stone. It is not set from a leadership team. It's a kind of a collaborative effort, and there is an accountability. People start having a completed. Similarly, like how we try to estimate stories. For this particular sprint, this is what I can accomplish. This is what is the estimation. I can commit for this. So that kind of an accountability of responsibility comes because it is not just the organization leadership that tries to set these goals. It's a kind of a collaborative effort. Through it, you come with an commitment. Tracking is, it's not just you set and at the end of the 3 months or the end of 6 months, we try to find out whether it is accomplished or not. So there is a cadence. There will be some kind of a weekly meeting, monthly meeting. This month, this is what we are trying to accomplish. The second month, this is what we are. So it's being tracked, and we can make pivot our strategies, change our strategies, even change our goals if needed, and make sure that the goals are achieved. Stretching is a kind of, these goals are not a kind of uh, simple things that could be achieved. You got to sweat for it to achieve. Say, for example, uh, uh, I am trying to increase my fitness. I don't go for a walk. For me, a 45 minutes walk every day is a kind of a stretched activity. For a guy who goes for an half an hour walk, then we try to say, okay, my goal would be to run a 10-kilometer marathon. A guy who runs a 10-kilometer marathon will say, okay, let's try to go set a goal for running a half marathon. Then a guy who say for who's running a half marathon, let's try to bullet. So the goals are something which you try to dream. You're trying into entering into a new zone which you have never thought about, and you got to really sweat for it to achieve. That's the whole. Just cannot be a mediocre kind of goal that you are trying to. It should be something big or aspirational. That is what we are talking about. So these are all the factors through which I am trying to guideline my framework to accomplish. That's why we try to have an framework like OKRs. Now, forget OKRs for a minute, and we always try to set some goals. Why am I not able to achieve it? One criteria would be is that I'm not looking at the most important thing that I need to work on. So it's just not the most important item. Is it really urgent now? So anything that is important, anything that is urgent, I will have to look at that as a prioritized item. Anything else can be left over. So you are trying to focus on one or two things, which is determinable, that has to be done immediately. So you try to pick that. That happens through OKR. You're able to communicate that goal. So it's simply because it is just a one-liner or a two-liner. It is able to, there's a kind of a strategy here. You can easily communicate it to everybody. Everybody it's simple, visible to everybody that this is the organization goal. This is what I'm trying to accomplish. So it becomes easy for everybody. Then it's not just you just set, and then at the end of the session you say, okay, you don't check whether it is accomplished or not. There is a clear cut plan. You're trying to track it. And the last point is, you don't get that right the first time. So you got to iterate. It's not just say that you will get it right always the first time. Even if you don't get it, that doesn't really matter. You try to iterate, make changes. It's more of a safe learning plan. As an organization, we try to learn, pivot, make changes. So all these gaps can be answered through this OKR. That's the point. We are trying to look at one item or the other, which is prioritized, which is urgent, which needs to be done immediately, and communicate it, have a plan, track it. If we are not able to accomplish it, that's fine, but we try to learn from it, have a reflection, and then iterate and try to complete it. Now, everybody would have used KPIs. Now we are trying to differentiate uh, what is the difference between a KPI and an OKR, how different it is. KPIs are mainly a metrics. It's numbers. It doesn't describe anything, right? Reduce the cycle time, reduce the number of defects to this much percentage. I got to complete this activity by this, produce this number of units of products. So it's mere number. It's not descriptive. But when I say I got to create a awesome financial product to increase my customer engagement, it's an outcome based. What is, what is the end result? What are you trying to accomplish? It's aspirational. So you really you can get every, simply reading that sentence one liner, you can get what you're trying to achieve. But that cannot be done saying I have to reduce the number of defects by 10%. Nobody is going to understand why are we doing. It's just numbers, metrics. Now how do I get these numbers? It's more about looking at data, either the past data or if you are looking at the future data, that what you're doing. It's a kind of data driven. Whereas here it's more outcome based, aspirational. You know what you're trying to do. It's you know the consequence. Why are we doing all that kind of stuffs? And tracking is generally KPIs. When you set, you know what is it at the end of that quarter or end of that thing, you try to find out whether you have accomplished or not. But that's not the way of how OKRs. OKRs have weekly meetings, monthly meetings. There is a cadence. There's a clear kind of system that you track and make changes. KPIs in between. You set a KPI saying that I got to reduce the defects by this percentage. Once you set, hardly it changes. But that's not the case in OKRs. Once you start tracking OKRs, the point here is there may be some weakness within the organization, strength. There will be something that where you have to pivot, or the goal itself will be absolute. So we are trying to look at the market condition, make changes accordingly, even it is something that is not written in stone. So even if you got to change in between, you can change OKRs, you can change the strategy. That's the point here. So but the point here is, it is not this over that. Both have to go hand in hand. KPIs can be best used when you are having, when the change state is very minimal, when it's a kind of an operations team, steady state, you know what you're trying to do. There is no surprises. Then KPI would be the perfect piece to look at. But OKRs are like you're trying to create a new feature, you're trying to explore a new market. Things are going, you're trying to do something big. You're trying to dream and you're trying to enter and market something big. That kind of cases, OKR will be used. It is not a kind of a this over that, depending upon the situation that we are in. Now we are looking at the kind of foundation blocks before we try to define OKRs. Okay, the first thing any organization, before we set these kind of implement these kind of goal setting frameworks, as an organization should have a mission statement, meaning why this company exists. What is the company trying to do out of it? Let's look at this picture that what we talked about, right? Say, for example, my objective is to travel to Kodaikanal. Just let's take an example, okay? I wanted to travel to Kodaikanal. Why do I do it? I wanted to get into a cool place, spend my vacation with my family. That's the point. So the purpose is not to go to Kodaikanal. My objective may be going to Kodaikanal. The purpose is I wanted to go to a place which is cool, calm. I want to get into a high altitude place, spend my, that's the purpose, not to go to Kodaikanal. So when I am trying to travel through to go to Kodaikanal, I find out that there is some natural calamity that has happened in Kodaikanal. I will not be able to proceed. So the point that I'm trying to, the goal may be to go to Kodaikanal, but the purpose is to spend some time in a hill station. That's the point. Now, what do we do naturally? We try to see what is the nearby place. Nearby place may be, say, for example, Munnar is another alternative. Okay, let's move on. So the mission is the purpose of doing it. The purpose of why my company exists is what we are trying to look at here. So let's look at some of the mission statements that Google. They formed a mission saying that I got to make sure all the world information should be easily available and it should be a useful information. That's the goal. That's the mission. So for that, they do a lot of activities. Let's take Amazon. They wanted to be the best customer-centric company on the earth. Zynga is a gaming company. How do they take it as a mission? Connecting the world through games. Netflix, entertain the world. So these are all the mission. Mission in terms is the purpose of why my company exists. Only once you have the purpose of why my company exists, OKRs or objectives or goals can be born. So that's the point. Now, once you set a mission, once you have a mission, then is a kind of a strategy. How am I going to accomplish that kind of mission? Or what I should not do. So strategies can be depending upon market segment, age group. Say, for example, market segment. Amazon will play differently in the US. Amazon will play a different strategy in India. In India, city car, the credit cards penetrations are much lower. So what did they come out with? They came out with some Flipkarts and Amazons came out with the option of cashback, or what do you mean? You pay the money once the product is delivered. So that kind of strategy changes. Okay, this age group is youth people. What will they like? So these kind of market segmentation, age group segmentation, these people would like to use mobiles rather than going in for a desktop version. So this kind of how am I going to accomplish those is the kind of strategy that which region should I consider a European region? In the European region, which market I am going to trying to understand who's the target customer, how am I going to accomplish that strategy you should have. Metrics thinking is you got to focus on the numbers. What is the number that I need to look at? Why am I looking at that number? What is that number trying to tell me? Why the reasoning behind that thing that I have to check. So let's look at the same example. The number that I have to look at is not to create an awesome financial, but that's not the number. It's not about creating a financial product. In order to increase the customer engagement, at least 40% of the users have to visit my site or product twice. I should have a customer satisfaction of 8 of 10. Why am I having these numbers? What numbers I have got to measure throughout my goal settings and tracking? So that number is what we are talking about here as metrics. And then you don't get it right at the first time. You're trying to learn as a team, reflect and come back. And you got to have some kind of a guidelines within the team of how we are going to accomplish these goals. So you got to have that kind of a charter. So now let's look at different types of goal setting OKRs. Okay. The first thing is one type of OKR settings would be the hypothesis OKRs. Hypothesis OKRs are you're trying to look at the market, trying to find out whether this will fit in or not. Uh, you don't know what is going to happen, but you're trying to just test the waters. How is the market? How is my product going to look at? So you might have different possible candidates, and you're trying to test that and see whether you are able to succeed before actually going full blown or full as a scaled version. So what happens is that it is better to fail now so that you can pivot, you can make change your strategies or even stop the whole initiative rather than going full blown and coming to know at the end that this is not going to work. Let's take the example, say I am trying to create a financial product for retired officials. Okay. I am trying to create a mobile version of that product. As I trying to create a .com version of a website product. You're trying to see whether how user friendly they are in terms of using mobile phones to use their product, or whether they prefer a kind of a .com version, a website version. And you try to find out, you found out that most of the people who are using this website is from a .com version rather than a mobile version, which they are not comfortable about, depending upon the age group. So there's no point doing a mobile version now when 80 or 90% of people are only using .com. So my focus would be only on coming out with a quick MVP of a .com version rather than an unprioritized work of creating a mobile version. So you try to test different possibilities, and you're trying to accomplish whichever works for you. Let's take a simple example here. You're trying to create a new product. You're trying to enter into a product, and what would be at least I should sell 1,000 units in the first quarter. There should be a minimum replacement of 100. So you're trying to test your waters. You're trying to it's a kind of a prototype. If it works, if it doesn't work, you're trying to make some changes, but at least you know whether the initiative that you take works or not working before you actually go full blown. That's the point here. The second thing is, now you've tested your waters, you know what you're trying to do, you have all the data at your fingerprints. Now you're trying to enter this new market with a bang. It's a kind of a kill. You're trying to kill the market, disrupt the market. It's not that you're entering a kind of an unknown world. You know what is happening. You're just trying to go full blown. Just like, say, for example, Reliance Jio. When they came with the Reliance Jio, most of the people who bought Reliance Jio SIM were actually already using some other telecom, but they just wanted to buy it because it was of a less price. Or even say Reliance Mobile handset, that what happened in 1990s, right? So they just gave it a mobile set for a 500 rupees down payment. They just tried to kill the market and then explore that market to improve their revenue. So you know what you're trying to do? You're just trying to disrupt the market, existing market. Let's take an example. I would like to do some kind of a work which I enjoy. Say, for example, training. At the same time, I am trying to become financially stable. The whole goal is I got to be financially stable, and also I should have a work-life balance. Okay. How do I measure that whether I can go ahead or whether this is working or not? So the one key result would be at least earn for at least a 30,000 over a 6 months period, and also try to take up new things even if you are not paid. So you're trying to get some amount of money. It may not solve all your problems, but you get some amount of money. You try to learn from it. Then you're able to create a clear-cut budgets of what is your spending patterns. This is what you're trying to get. How is your spending patterns? Make sure that you're able to manage it. Just avoid any kind of neck pains or back pains. So if I'm able to achieve all this, then I am trying to achieve. So you're entering a new zone. It is not like the previous one where you don't know what you're trying to do. You fully know, you have all the backup data, but you're trying to dream something new. You're trying to kill the market. You're trying to look at new opportunities and grow big. This is where exploratory OKRs is all about. Third thing is a kind of milestone OKRs. So see, there may be some initiatives which are huge, which cannot be completed in a say in a 3 months period, 6 months period. It may take a year or even 2 years. Uh, that could be of for any reason. Say, for example, as an organization culture, I will not be able to make changes immediately and do it. So depending upon the scenario, if your organization culture takes slow decisions, or it can be a domain or a sector where things don't change much. Hospitality industry, hardly it changes. The concept is the same, the business model is the same. You don't need to make changes in it. So for all these, you don't need to come with new initiatives every 3 months or that. So for all these kind of reasons, where either because the organization culture or because the initiative is so large, you can have a goal which is a consolidated, but I will do it through increments. So let's take a simple example. I am trying to make a new product. It's a kind of a regulatory product which would be used by the youth. So for me, it needs to be launched this quarter. Okay, for the next 2 months or 3 months, the first milestone would be to come out with an design and development. If I am able to design and develop and test, say for example, in the next 2 months, I am fine with it. That would be the first milestone. Second milestone is then you're trying to accomplish increase the traffic. Earlier, you just designed. In the next 2 months, you're trying to increase it by 20% and trying to make it full blown. Then at the end of the quarter, you're trying to, it's just not design, it's just not testing, it is just not traffic consumption of how much people are using that site. It is all about engaging with the customer. The number of customer enrollment should be at least 50%. So in order to come out with number of 50% of people to get enrolled to my site, my first milestone would be to first design. Second is slowly have a roll up plan of where I start with 10% traffic consumption and then I move to 100%. Once my 100% consumption is over, then I start engaging where the users needs to log in and start engaging. So that's my goal. So wherever there is a kind of an huge initiative, these are different types of OKRs that I can make use of to accomplish my goals. Any of these OKRs. I stop here for any questions if anybody has, and then maybe we can move ahead. Any queries till now? All right. Now let's look at uh, the real-time scenarios of how John Doerr coached teams. Now we are going to look at, we saw all these characteristics, right? Why do I need to use OKRs? One would be the focus. The other would be the alignment, commitment, tracking, stretching. So based on John Dewar's experience, real time, he came out with he started talking with business leaders and why actually they are trying to implement OKRs. So the first organization that what we are trying to look at is Remind. Remind is an messaging app. Okay, it's an app that is being used by 80% of the public school staff members, students, parents within the community, right? So it's an app that is where it's a communication platform where students, teachers, professors, parents, or a family communicate with each other. That's the basic idea of why we use a Remind app. Brett is the founder of this app. All right. So he had learning disabilities during his school days. And his inspiration was his teacher. She said it like that, okay, you have an learning disability. Now let's try to overcome that challenge. Don't For him the problem was to sit continuously for an hour, even for more than 10 minutes, write on an assignment, take up an examination. So sitting more than 10 minutes itself was a big difficulty for him. So it was overwhelming to handle different kind of examinations, tests, assignments, all that kind of stuffs. So what she said was, okay, don't look at multiple things here. Simply say, look at what is the most important thing I have to do today. Just question it. Do I have to do assignments? Do I have to listen to the lectures? Do I have to study for the exam? For today, what is the most important, urgent work or an activity that I have to do? Start doing that. So, what happened is that slowly he started sitting for half an hour, 1 hour, he progressed and he was able to write examinations even for a 4 hour examinations. He was able to get good grades simply because earlier he got overwhelmed with a lot of activities that are being put. Rather, try to concentrate on one thing. He had that clarity. There is a clear kind of understanding of why that needs to be done. So don't take everything into your plate. Rather than focus on one thing, try to complete that. So he was able to successfully pass his schooling and then he moved to college. That time he and his brother thought needs to be a platform similar to Twitter, but this platform is more about only for the teachers, students, and the family members, where there should be a secure way of communicating things. Or what is the assignment? When is the exam? Look at the lectures. Have any doubts? Just ask them. So they thought that there needs to be some kind of a platform for education similar to Twitter. They wanted to have a secure platform. So their mission was safe way of teachers to message students and parents. That was their mission. So we started talking with different teachers, professors, parents. There were a lot of ideas that came in. For him, his inspiration was what his teacher talked about is focus at what is really important. That is what OKRs are talking about. Don't pick everything all together. Don't do multiple items. Take one thing that is important, prioritize, start working on it, complete it, and then roll. So he started looking at I should first send messages. I should receive messages. Then he moved out. I should invite a friend. Then I should share this message to somebody else. I need to print it. So he liked this OKRs, or he was able to run this company because of OKRs, because of these goal settings where there was clear kind of focus of what needs to be done. There was a kind of business clarity of why, what, and there was a communication strategy for it. But even then, after implementing these OKRs, nobody used this app. So what he found out was his objective is not to make an app. Is any user using it? He did not measure of how many people are measuring it, or when they try to create an app, they didn't think the success depends upon how many people are actually trying to use that product. Rather than they were trying to measure of I have to complete the design, I have got to complete the implementation of this particular feature. So the measuring factor should be in terms of what is my weekly active teachers that are getting enrolled, participating? What is my weekly students who are getting enrolled and participating in this app? How much is the retention rate? So these kind of metrics is what that we need to measure rather than looking at which are not kind of measurements which are not really going to impact our product engagement. So the bottom line moral of the story is what OKR helped him was to focus on one item at a time and also measure the real metrics that needed for the application or the product to succeed in terms of how many people are trying to use my product on a weekly basis. What is my retention rate? All that kind of stuff is what we are trying. So he's trying to convey here is pick one at a time and also measure what is needed. That is what Brett was talking about of what he liked about OKRs. The second one is the alignment. Alignment is what we were talking about is there are some goals that were set at the organization level. Though the goals were set at the organization level, people don't throw that to the employees and these are the goals. The team creates their own goals to make sure that the organization goals work. So there's a kind of an autonomy or collaboration that happens here. So the point here is whoever works on a particular piece of work should know why he is working. How am I contributing that to the company's perspective? So we are going to look at Intuit. Intuit is a financial product platform. The famous one would be the TurboTax, where at the US you can file tax returns. All the tax preparation you can do. QuickBooks is another product where financial small organizations or house finance plannings all can be done through this. So Scott, who's the founder of Intuit, when talking about why they started using OKRs, his first answer was there were a lot of disruptions or challenges that happened during this period of Intuit. And each time there was a challenge or a disruption, he had to change his strategies. Each time he had to change his strategies, he had to define some goals and pivot and make that he had to accomplish that goals. So that is what he liked about this OKRs. He talks something like this for say for TurboTax or QuickBooks. When they started as a company, they were a kind of a desktop software companies. It's a kind of an desktop software where you got to install, deploy, and then use that software. Slowly, how market changed was dot-com movements came, online applications came. So he had to pivot and make sure that instead of a desktop software where people deploy their application, they got to move to online application. There was a pivot there. Then after going to online application, there was a pivot again saying that you got to make sure all your infrastructure cloud-based, modernize your applications. Again, there was a change in the strategy. The goals were changed and they were able to succeed. The important point here is uh, when they had a desktop version of QuickBooks, they sold that desktop version to another company. They come out with a different financial product which can be used in the cloud based. So each time there was a challenge or a disruption, as a company, they were able to succeed in the challenge, change their strategies, succeed. And the recipe here, the moral of the story here is each time they are trying to change, shift course, OKRs help them in setting goals because it's simple, visible, clear. Everybody knows what the other one is trying. He's trying to give an example. As a company, my goal was to modernize all applications, have a secure application, modernize all my applications. He puts it like that. Uh, there was a kind of an workflow where the earlier applications, there are about 9 to 10 accounting systems that what it has to pass through. So they thought it's a kind of an headache that needs to be a modernization. Instead of 9 applications that needs to be integrated, you need to have a full easy way of one touch policy of one application. So there was some kind of a modernization effort. From a top line, as a company, I got to modernize, make it a cloud-based application, modernize secure application. For that, what do I need to do? They came out with, they have some kind of an trying to migrate from 11 version to 12 version this quarter. So there is a kind of a time span, a measurable thing that as a company, I got to change the Oracle Business Suite from version 11 to 12. And they got to deliver a new billing system, which is not going to traverse through different billing system, rather have a easy one touch policy by the year 2020. This is the goal from a perspective of a company. This is not, what is he trying to say? This is not thrown to the team sitting in Bangalore. One team may be looking at some billing systems, one team may be for the Oracle Business Suite. So he says that a guy who sits in Bangalore, for him, his team's objective is to create an end-to-end billing system. For him, the mid-quarter or the first 3 months, he has to create a pilot project. Rollout will be at 25. So a guy who sits at Bangalore understands what piece of work he is trying to do and how it relates to the goal that is being set from a company perspective. That fascinates him, where it's a kind of, it's not just somebody sets the goal and the other teams have to follow it. The goal is being set from a team perspective. I got to have my own goals. I got to collaborate. And there is, from a team perspective, he understands, sees the reasoning of the consequence of the work that he is trying to work. And he is able to look at the big picture of how I am working for the organization. That's what is fascinating here, in terms of there is a collaboration. Everybody are in the same page of who is working on or why we are trying to work out. That's one kind of factor why OKRs is being used. The third company is Nuna. It's a Korean word meaning big system. Okay. Kib is the founder of Nuna product. She started working in Google. She became the Google product manager for Google Health. That was a failed product. It was a online free application where you can store all your health records. That's the basic idea of why Google Health came, but it was a failure. Her inspiration was her brother, who was an autistic person. So their parents were kind of Korean migrants who got settled in the US. She understood how important it is to have an insurance, how important it is for a survival for an say middle class people. Insurance is how it's a boon for them. But though how she understood how insurance is useful for them, but she understood that there needs some kind of improvement in how data is being used. The data needs to be refined. They're still using outdated applications. There needs to be some kind of a modernization effort that happens. So she had that backup experience of working with Google Health. Even while she was working in Google Health, OKRs were being used, but she didn't realize that importance. But she had that domain knowledge of modernizing the health information so that people start using that and the data is being refined. So she came out with some kind of a product, initial product, and she was trying to sell it. For the first 2 years, she was not able to sell. There were hardly 10 people working in her company, and she was not even able to pay salary to them, but they were trying to. Then she realized what she was working on in terms of OKRs. She started realizing the importance of OKRs, started implementing OKRs for them. Even then, they were not able to succeed. And one day, she got a huge government order where she had to organize the database of at least 80 million people in the US. So her product takes care of refining the information, having a database of handling personal health records of 80 million people. Today, her company is around 10 people working. Now, how do I scale it up to handle an information or databases of 80 million? So there needs to be a scale up in terms of resources, infrastructure. It has to happen all together. She understood that OKRs are the only way where they can set goals and go. So one goals that what she tried to set was, As a company, I got to scale from a 10-member team to 500-member team. Her goal was to recruit at least 100, objective key result was to recruit at least 100 engineers this quarter, hire some commercial leaders. So when you talk about commitment, it's all about accountability or responsibility. When the CEO of the company says, this is my goal, this is what I have achieved. She, in fact, showcased this goal to every member of the company, saying, this is my objective. These are my key results. This is where I failed. This is where I was able to accomplish. So she was able to showcase that I was able to only accomplish out of score of 1, I was able to accomplish only 0.8 in recruiting 100 engineers this quarter. I was not able to recruit all the required number of engineers, but I was able to recruit all the commercial leaders. So what happens here is there is an accountability, there is a commitment. Once the CEO of the company showcases, this is what I am trying to do, this is what I have failed, this is what I have accomplished, automatically every member of the company starts showcasing their goals or objectives and key results. This is what it's a kind of a safe place where there is transparency. Everybody is visible, able to visible what the other one is trying to visible. And the best part, what Kim was trying about is there'll be another guy who says, you know what, the key result can be changed this way to enrich the goal, to make sure that the objectives are achieved. So there is a kind of a transparency. Everybody are in the same page. Once the CEO of the company showcases what she has achieved, automatically there is a commitment, and then it is being followed, and everybody is trying to showcase the bottom line moral story of this is everybody showcasing their objectives and key results and also their scoring pattern so that each one can help the other. That's the point here in terms of bringing in that accountability or responsibility of what I am trying to achieve these next 3 months, and you try to reflect why you have not achieved it or how you achieved it. Then the third part is a kind of tracking that what happens. Gates Foundation is a startup that started with a 20 billion amount of money, and they had a thumb rule saying that any new initiative they are trying to take up, Gates Foundation will have a minimum investment of 1 billion. If you see the polio eradication program, Gates Foundation contributed to the most to the government of India, and it was one of the factors they invested a lot. Their key result was something like this 80-90 rule. That is, the polio vaccination pattern should be vaccinated to at least 80% of the people in the district. 80% of districts needs to be vaccinated. 90% of the district people in that needs to be vaccinated. 80%, 80 districts have to be vaccinated, and 90% in those districts has to be vaccinated. So that was a clear kind of goals or key results that we are trying to achieve. So they had a clear kind of pattern. If you ask Melinda Gates of what they liked about OKRs was, it's transparent. You track it. It's not something like you set the goals at the end of 3 months or end of 6 months. You're trying to check. It's a checkpoint, or you're trying to say whether it's not that case. There are kind of a cadence. There are kind of clear kind of checkpoints that happen. You're trying to check whether you're in the right track. If you're not in the right track, you're trying to make changes. Or even if you think this is not going to work, you stop there. So there is some kind of a clear kind of scoring patterns. Say, for example, my scoring pattern would be if I will reach 1 if at least 100 users are being registered. If a minimum of 100 users register, then my score will be 1. Else, if I at least store 50 users or enroll 50 users, my score will be 0.7. If I am not reaching this at least 50 users, but at least creating a prototype and testing, out of 1, my score will be 3. Now, the point here is this is just like an acceptance criteria for a user story, and you're trying to create a score grading even before actually starting that goal or objective. And there is a clear kind of reflection that is happening. This is what Melinda Gates really liked about OKRs, and this is how they accomplished this polio vaccination program of this 80-90%. 80% of the district needs to be vaccinated, and in those districts at least 90% of the population in those districts needs to be vaccinated. This is the thumb rule that they followed, and they tracked it. It's not that they start at day one and then at the day last they try to track it. Throughout the cadence, they were trying to track, make changes, change in the strategy. Now, when asked about why they liked OKRs, the tracking is one that is the secret sauce, where it is not something written in stone. We are trying to pivot, make changes. This is why they liked about what they liked about uh, uh, OKRs. The last stretching, Google was the only company which used OKRs to the maximum. It's part of their culture. So when you talk about stretch to goals, we were talking about that example, right? A guy who never even walked for a 5 minutes, you're trying to look at 45 minutes. Then you're trying to, you can make small changes. Like say, for example, a car. We are trying to make a car. Say, for example, on an average, say 15 kilometers per liter. From there, we say 20 kilometers. For all these mediocre small improvements, you can make small steps, refine the same engine, make sure that you are trying to accomplish. But say from 15, you're trying to dream, you're trying to be bold, audacious. Say from 15, I got to make sure that I increase it to 30, 50. Simply making small refinements in the engine is not going to work. You got to completely redesign the whole system, redesign the whole engine. Only then you can come out with that kind. If you're going to achieve that kind of, you're trying to make a dream about a big achievement, an audacious, bold achievement. Larry Page puts it this way: if you're trying to aim at the moon, only then you will reach the stars. That's the point that he tried to look about is he said it in a good way of just like how I try to flip around pages. That should be the customer experience when users tries to browse. So this is what he was trying to look at as an objective. Initially, Chrome did not come. They were working for a client software for Firefox. They understood that JavaScript may not be the right way of working on if we have to make a browser which is of a faster rate. So they said that they were in the process of creating a new browser, Chrome. So they thought that we got to really redesign. They moved from JavaScript to Ajax platform, completely a new architecture, new thing. So the thought process was it should have different tabs. Each tab should be a separate process, and it should be something working like an operating system. It should be a platform like an operating system where it listens to us, and it should be a separate process. Only then you can make user experience faster. The first time when Larry Page and Sundar Pichai started setting goals, remember at that time there were nil users, zero users when they started creating Chrome. So even before designing Chrome, their goal was average weekly active users should be 20 million, from 0 to 20 million. So you got to sweat. It's a stretch test is not doing unrealistic work. It's a realistic work, but you got to sweat for it. Look at the range of how they are trying to dream about. From a zero number of users, the weekly active users should be 20 million. They failed. Now, the best part is you try to reflect of why I have failed. One thing was for the Mac version, they didn't even deploy it. They were not able to even develop and deploy it. That was one failure. The second failure that what they understood was people really did not know what Chrome is capable of. They did not really know about the product. What are the features? Okay, in order to make it 20, if what the failed reflection, what they understood was you got to showcase the features of what Chrome can do. They came out with television ads. Now they did not sit with 20 million, say that I will try to accomplish 20. For the next year, they made sure that I will try to achieve 50 million. Again, they failed, but from 20 million, they came out to 38 million activators, but their goal objective was to reach 50 million active average users. Now, they try to reflect here why as a team they failed. They came to know that there are a lot of window platform users, but they did not concentrate on other platform like iOS, Linux users. So they tried to penetrate that market. Now, each time they changed their strategy, reflected, they were able to succeed. And Larry Page puts it this way: only because we set the bar high, we had stretched goals, we were able to bold enough look at new opportunities, they were able to succeed. They not what they liked about OKRs was, don't just take a kind of a conservative goal. Try to be bold enough to take big decisions. Achievement should be big, should be a new opportunity. Today, because of using some kind of a version of OKRs, today mobile alone is around 1 billion active users. So these are all the characteristics of why OKRs are being used and how each business leader thought about why are they actually using OKRs is all about. Now, when asked a question in one of the interviews, John Doerr, who is the author of this book, uh, is it just for companies or organizations? Is it can we use this for personal goals? He gave an example of what personal goal that he had. So he wanted to have good family time, and his key results. Look at his key results. As a family, everybody should sit on the dinner table by 6 p.m. at least 20 days a month, and nobody is going to have their internet on, so they switched off their modem. So to make sure that I have quality family time, I make sure that everybody comes to the dinner table by 6 and there is no distraction. So these are the kind of measurable key results of what is needed. So it is not just for an organization perspective. You can make this for uh, a kind of personal goals too. So my point here is it is not just for the company. You can also make sure that try to start having try to make your own kind of OKRs of how am I going to improve in my career, growth, development, health wise, all that kind. You try to have an exercise and then have a cadence. So this could be one example. I am coming to the last point. Before that, I will try to make a pass. Any questions? All right. Quickly moving to best practices. OKRs are not kind of activities to-do list. They are kind of outcomes. I try to come out with a feature. What is the consequence of it? What am I going to get out of it? That's the point. Not come out with kind of activity to-do list. That's not the case. You're trying to achieve something. It needs to be huge, and somebody should benefit out of it. You know the consequence. You know the end result. That's all about OKRs. It's not a kind of a day-to-day activities that you have to enlist. Second thing is it should be simple, one liner, easy to remember, aspirational. Aspiration meaning you're trying to dream something big and it's a kind of a stretched thing. And OKRs are never kind of an tool or a magic wand where you can manage or control your employees or improve your productivity. That's not the point here. It is a kind of a self-paced learning where as a company everybody tries to define goals and trying to accomplish it. And OKR should never have key results of say I have to complete this project by this end. That should never be the kind of key results. Because I complete this project, what is the outcome? What is the consequence? That should be your objective or key results rather than project completion. Uh, you should not cascade whatever organization goal, just have a copycat to the team level. The example that what we talked about the IPL team. There will be one organization goal. The teams will form their own goals. They will collaborate. They will have their own autonomy. They will have their own goals to achieve the organization goals. It is not just like kind of somebody gives you these goals and you just have to go about. So there's a kind of a collaboration. If that's not going to happen, then there'll be pivoting and changing that happens. Uh, the best practice would be never have individual goals. Always have an organization goal, then have it at the team level, but don't get pinned down to individual goals. There is only one company that has succeeded in it. Other than Google, most of the companies have failed when they started using at the individual level, because once you start have focusing on the individual, each try they don't look at the big picture. Each one tries to do only their part of work. So that's not the point. A whole point of why we need to have an OKR. So never have individual goals. First, try to mature as a company to just have organization goals and at the team level, not to cascade it to the individual level, at least at the start. Um, uh, the whole idea of having OKRs is to not bring everything to the plate, just focus on one thing or maximum two and make sure. Should OKRs be connected to the performance reviews? It's a kind of an yes and no. You should always talk in the individual performance reviews of what is your kind of accomplishment towards your OKRs, but that should never be in terms of giving you bonus or giving you in terms of salary. So that OKRs are not for managing people. That's not the whole objective. It's as a company, how am I going to grow? Why my company exist? Everybody should be on the single page. It should not be a part of your bonus or your salary numbers. And always look at uh, what is the number you got to look at. My measurement should not be in completion of the product rather than how many people are going to use it. What is the most important metric that I have to measure? What is that number say? Why am I doing it? What is the consequence of it? That should be the metric that I look at. And it's you don't get it right at the first time, and it's a kind of an iterational organization learning. The best part is you track, you reflect, make changes, change your strategy, and succeed in your goal. I like to end this session with a recent interview by Tata chairman Chandrasekhar. I gave this interview to one of the televisions. He gave the story about how Tata Nexon EV came to the market. Uh, he started like that, right? Like this, right? Say he called up Gunter, who was the chairman of Tata Motors that time. He simply told him, "I need a EV car within an year." He's an expert in uh, 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 motor industry, and he said he laughed at it and said it would take a minimum of 4 years. It is not like a software MVP product where you can just come out. They did not. In this whole interview, Chandra did not talk about OKRs. He did not utter a word about OKRs, but uh, whatever he talked about echoed all the characteristics of an OKR. He said, okay, let's challenge this. Let's challenge it. We know that's a limitation. Tata Motors cannot do it in a year, within a year, but let's have that as a goal. Let's challenge it and let's try to beat it up. What they did was they understood that it is not possible just by Tata Motors. He brought in, tried to form a steering committee, brought in different Tata sister companies like Tata Elxsi, Tata Power, brought in different people, had a 20-member steering team, and their goal was to come out with a EV car within a year. He put it like this: I don't need a super duper car. Let's first come out with a simple base version and then try to work on it. This is how we put. And he started echoing saying that when they started this whole design, hardly even 500 EV vehicles sold in a quarter. So he is trying to create a prototype like what we are talking about, and hypothesis OKR. He believed that EV is going to is a game changer, and he started, even if it is going to be a less than 500 cars that is being sold this quarter, down the lane, that's going to be a game changer. Just like how we talked about this hypothesis OKR, he wanted to come out with a simple prototype. He says, I don't need a super duper car, a base version. Then he puts on, says that why he believes, even though it is just a 500, less than 500 number every quarter that is being sold, it's a total number of EV cars, not just Tata. Total number of EV cars that are sold in a quarter is less than 500. He says, he puts it these numbers. Out of 25 big cities in India, 20 cities are polluted. And already Tesla has showcased that EV cars can do much better than an ICE vehicle. So these are all the factors that he feels this could be a game changer. He came out with an hypothesis and they are trying to set some goals and they are trying to. This is how Tata Nexon came to picture. And he ends this interview saying, we should always set the bar high. So I just wanted to give this instance. They did not talk anything about OKRs, but this whole point was trying to test, trying to dream something big, trying to be bold. It's okay to fail, but you're trying to aim at the moon. At least you're trying to reach the star. You're trying to aim at the stars, but you're trying to reach. So that's the point here. You aim high, be bold, reflect, track, and then make changes, change the strategy. That's how different companies, most of the companies use OKRs or some kind of goal setting framework similar to OKRs. Google's have moved from OKRs to different kind of their own version of goal setting frameworks. But Larry Page puts this way: if at all is one factor that helped the company grow, it is because of these kind of goal setting frameworks like OKR. And this is what different business leaders talked about, is each time there is a disruption, each time there is a challenge, there is a need for setting goals and making sure you accomplish that. For that, these kind of goal setting frameworks like object key results are detrimental if at all my company or companies needs to exist and excel. I end here. Any questions?
Hi, Rajan. Prasanna here.
Hey, Prasanna.
Thank you for the brief session today. I think you have given deep knowledge about what is OKR and why it is used for. Do you also have any kind of AI tools? Because right, anything which is there nowadays, right, we're looking for an AI aspect. So, is there any specific tool would you suggest, or if you have used to build or to work on AKR basically?
Personally saying, I have not looked at this area. I'm sure that would be the AI tools would be used, but I am not aware of it.
Okay.
We can always look at it at a later stage, but that's a point. But I do not have any knowledge on that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions? All right. Thanks for joining. Thanks for your time. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rajan. Thanks all.
Thank you.